Truce talks between Palestinian resistance and Israel are underway in Cairo amid fears of Israeli assaults on Rafah. UN Special Envoy Hans Granberg briefs the Security Council on the latest peace efforts in Yemen. Houthi shelling of populated areas in Adalai province displaces thousands of families. Good evening. Welcome to Yemen Today News. I am Abir Ali. The Israeli Occupation Army reported on Wednesday that its aircraft began a series of raids on Lebanon. It said the move comes in response to the missiles that were fired in morning at northern Israel, targeting the headquarters on the Northern Command in the city of Safed. The rockets that were fired from Lebanon resulted in the death of a woman and wounding of 8 Israeli soldiers in Safed, with 1 soldier was seriously injured. In Gaza Strip, medical sources reported that the Israeli occupation committed 11 massacres, killing 103 martyrs and 145 wounded during the past 24 hours. The same sources indicated that the number of martyrs has risen to more than 28,500 and the wounded to 68,000 since the start of the aggression on the Gaza Strip on the 7th of last October. Thousands of victims are still under rubble on the roads as the occupation prevents ambulance and civil defense crews from reaching them. South Africa's government lodged an urgent request with the International Court of Justice to consider Israel's breach of genocide prevention order. South Africa said it asked the court to weigh whether Israel's strikes on Rafah and its intention to launch a ground offensive on the city's breaches both the UN Genocide Convention and initial orders handed down by the court last month. Media reports said negotiators in Cairo were since yesterday reaching an agreement to achieve a ceasefire in Gaza. There are growing international calls to reach a ceasefire in Gaza. More on this is in the following report.
Officials from the United States, Egypt, Israel, and Qatar gathered in Cairo in another attempt to reach an agreement on a Gaza ceasefire, as calls intensified for Israel to postpone an assault on the enclave's southernmost city, which is home to over 1 million displaced people. The roughly 300,000 people who live in Rafah before the conflict are now living in tent camps and shelters, having fled the Israeli bombardment in Gaza. The number of Palestinian deaths in Gaza has increased to 133 in the last 24 hours, according to the health officials in Gaza. Since October 7, 28,473 Palestinians had died, and there are 68,146 injuries. Most of the heavily populated Gaza Strip is in ruins, and it is thought that many more are beneath the rubble of demolished structures. Diseases are spreading, and food, water, and other needs are becoming scarce. Rafah is presently home to about half of Gaza's 2.3 million people. Regarding the growing number of civilian deaths in Gaza and Israel's intentions to shift its attack to Rafah, where about 1.5 million Palestinians have fled in search of safety, the UN Security Council convened an emergency closed meeting. Following the late meeting, China's UN ambassador said that there was a loud cry among council members over the necessity of taking immediate action to address the unfolding humanitarian catastrophe. Israel receives military assistance worth billions of dollars from America, which is its primary international supporter. However, the U.S. State Department declared that it opposes a ground invasion in Rafah and cautioned that such an operation ran the potential of a disaster. In order to provide immediate and sustained peace to Gaza for a minimum of 6 weeks, U.S. President Joe Biden stated that Washington was negotiating a hostage agreement. Biden has asked Israel to hold off on its Rafah attack until it has a workable plan in place to safeguard civilians. Gaza health officials said that an Israeli strike on a house in the Nusayrat refugee camp in central Gaza killed 16 Palestinians overnight. They reported that another air attack on a car in Gaza City later on Tuesday killed 6 people, including children.
The displaced people of Al Junayva camp in Marib Governorate carried out a protest to denounce the Israeli air strikes on the Palestinian city of Rafah. The displaced protesters denounced the Israeli air attack, which they described as historical, and denounced the weak international position regarding the Israeli air attack on Rafah. Turkish President Tayyip Erdogan arrived at Cairo on an official visit to Egypt, his first in more than 11 years. The visit comes after diplomatic and political efforts at the highest level between the two countries over the past years, which culminate today in the return of normalization of relations between the two countries. The United Nations Security Council will discuss tonight the latest military and political developments in Yemen. In the open session, Council members are scheduled to listen to two briefings from the UN Special Envoy to Yemen, Hans Granberg, and the Director of Aid Operations at the Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The U.S. Coast Guard, which operates in the Fifth Fleet area, seized an Iranian weapons shipment in the Arabian Sea, which was smuggled to the Houthi militia. Sources explained that the boat left a port in Iran carrying weapons and was trying to head to the coast of southern Oman or Yemen, but American monitoring was able to arrest the sailors and confiscate the load of weapons directed to the Houthis. The United States of America confirmed that the raids against the Houthis group's positions in Yemen were able to significantly weaken and reduce the group's capabilities, but did not eliminate it completely. Pentagon said during a press conference that U.S. has certainly disabled and weakened the capabilities of the Houthis, confirming, however, the Houthis still have a large arsenal. Houthis are intensifying their attacks and shelling on the populated areas in Adala. The Houthi shelling is leaving thousands of families homeless. The following report has more.
There is misery and sorrow experienced by the residents of the villages on the firing line on the outskirts of Adala, whose citizen villages have been transformed by the Houthi militia into a battlefield, causing their displacement and the destruction of their property and farms. This resulted in the forced displacement of more than 2,100 families from those areas, in addition to the partial displacement of thousands of families from neighboring areas.
The Houthi militia bombed a village and a lot of people died. They used to throw bombs day and night. Citizens left their homes and moved to other safe areas to save their lives and their children. Now, our lands are exposed to continuous targeting.
According to local reports, there are 52 residential areas being subjected to bombing and sniping with Houthi weapons, 24 of which are villages in the region of Maris and Bab Khalak, 17 areas towards Al-Fakhi front, and 11 villages in Hajar area. The Houthi militia is still targeting the rest of its population with continuous bombing and snipers, causing damage to lives and property. The Houthi militia does not give any value to the citizen. They only care about expanding on the land and gaining more control and influence through force that is met with popular rejection.
We are committed to the truth, but the Houthi militia isn't. They bomb areas randomly. They don't care about citizens. They only want to seize lands and properties.
Many residential areas were transformed by the Houthi militia into military barracks in a battlefield, causing the complete displacement of their residents, while it continues to target and bomb dozens of residential areas with various weapons, leaving more civilian casualties and causing damage to property.
2 officers and a woman in Abgabarat were injured on Tuesday evening as a result of the explosion of a hand grenade. A local source told Khabar agency that a gunman threw a hand grenade and a resultant explosion injured 2 men and a woman who happened to passing by the time of the incident. A recent UN report stated that approximately 80 million people in Yemen will be in urgent need in life-saving health assistance. The report, 3/4 of them are children and women, in light of the deterioration in the country's health sector after 9 years of war. This report has more.
A recent UN report stated that approximately 80 million people in Yemen will be in urgent need of life-saving health assistance. 3/4 of them are children and women, in light of the deterioration in the country's health sector after 9 years of war. According to the overview report on humanitarian needs in Yemen issued by the United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, 17.8 million people from the most vulnerable groups in the country will need some type of health assistance during the current year 2024. The report added that those in need of life-saving health services are the most vulnerable groups, which include displaced people, children, women, elders, people with disabilities, mental health conditions, marginalized communities, and those affected by conflict-related injuries. The OCHA office explained that 50% of people in need of health support this year are children, and 24% are women who need to access various medical and reproductive health care services. The report indicated that the insufficient health response during the current year will lead to the closure of between 500 and 700 healthcare facilities due to a lack of basic supplies, medicines, and operational support. According to this year's humanitarian response plan, the cluster health, consisting of 46 partners, requires funding of $249.4 million to meet the health needs of 9 million people, including women, children, internally displaced people, and the host community. The United Nations warned that the combination of economic crisis and disasters resulting from climate change in Yemen during the current year 2024 will further exacerbate the factors that contribute to health vulnerability. And without the provision of healthcare services, the spread of infectious diseases such as dengue fever, malaria, and cholera will continue.
Coming up in the news. The first Kung Fu Championship concluded its processions in Mara province. Welcome back. A citizen survived certain death when a mine left by the Houthi militia exploded south of Hodeida province. Field sources revealed that a team from the Joint Forces Engineering Team went to the area to clear it of mines. Security sources revealed to Yemen today that dozens of inmates in the central prison in Amran Governorate are subjected to great suffering. This includes the spread of a number of diseases and epidemics among inmates and a severe food shortage. The Houthi militia is shrinking its duties and refusing to transfer patients to hospitals for treatment. In the same time, medicines and food aid provided by international organizations to support prison inmates were looted. In Egypt, a truck slammed into several passengers' vehicles in Alexandria, killing at least 15 people, authorities said Wednesday. The crash also injured 8 people, according to a police report. The truck slammed into 4 microbuses, with 1 microbus overturned and second was set ablaze. Marib Governorate Championship in Open Wushu Kung Fu was held by the branch of the Game Federation in cooperation with the Office of Youth and Sports. This report has more.
In a country that has been suffering years of violence and instability, sports in Yemen still bring people together, giving them some relief. Kung Fu is the first championship in the open game in Marib. It is organized by the branch of the Game Federation and the Governorate in cooperation with the Youth and Sports Office. It lasted for over a period of 3 days, with the participation of 40 players from the youth, junior, and senior age groups.
In this championship, we saw all the hard work and efforts made by these young people in Marib. We support all sports actives and hope a better future for them. Today, we concluded the Kung Fu Championship. This competition is considered the first for this sport. There has been many training for this championship, and today the winners were honored with medals.
At the end, the participating teams reviewed a number of combat skills that they received during the training periods. As the tournament is the first in Marib and reflects a qualitative shift in the aspect of sports within the Governorate, the winners of the first 3 places according to weights in the championship competition were also honored with gold, silver, and bronze medals.
Here is a reminder of the main headlines. Truce talks between Palestinian resistance and Israel are underway in Cairo amid fears of Israel assault on Rafah. UN Special Envoy Hans Grunberg briefs the Security Council on the latest peace efforts in Yemen. Houthis' shelling of populated areas in Adala province displaces thousands of families. This is the end of the news. Thank you for streaming with us. It was Abir Ali.